I'd like to call to order the regular Town Commission meeting of November the 14th. Will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kurzban,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Here.
Commissioner Fender,
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Here.
Okay, that brings us down to proclamations and presentations. The first one is a life-saving award for Police Officer Vincent Peter Paul. Chief, will you do the honors, please?
Thank you. I'm kind of starting to feel like these life-saving awards should maybe just be a regular thing on the agenda, because I'm happy to hear that we're here very often with these. On Tuesday, October 24th, 2023, Officer Vincent Peter Paul was dispatched to a medical assist by the Martin County Sheriff's Office related to an unresponsive adult at a condominium on Southeast Ocean Boulevard. If you're not aware, we very regularly back up the Sheriff's Office or have to respond to calls if their units are also busy. On arrival at scene at the Cedar Point condominium, Officer Peter Paul observed an individual attempting cardiopulmonary resuscitation on the patient while she was still on the sofa. The officer moved her to the floor, checked her vital signs. She had no pulse and was not breathing. Officer Peter Paul continued CPR until the arrival of fire rescue personnel. Officer Peter Paul continued chest compressions, assisting fire rescue while the medical personnel performed advanced life support activities. By the time the patient was transported by fire rescue to Cleveland Clinic, Martin North, she had regained her pulse and respiration. This officer's exemplary response and recognition of a life-threatening condition caused him to provide the care necessary to restore life. It is for this reason that Officer Vincent Peter Paul is recognized for his actions and receiving this formal commendation for life-saving. Congratulations. Well earned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You. Keep up the good work.
And we can roll into officer swearing in of David Flanagan.
Okay. David Flanagan is the newest officer to join the Sewalls Point Police Department. Mr. Flanagan retired from the New York State Patrol after 20 years of service. He and his family, consisting of his wife and 3 children, moved to Florida in 2020. He has a bachelor's degree in history. He completed his original police academy in New York in 2000 and completed the comparative compliance course in Florida in October of this year to enable him to sit for the state exam, and he successfully passed that exam on October 19th. By all accounts, all of his references describe Dave as dependable, honest, trustworthy, caring, and helpful to others, all of which are qualities we look for an officer in Sewalls Point. Officer Flanagan is here today with his family. As a department, we're grateful to see them here today supporting Dave in his second police career. The town of Sewalls Point and the Sewalls Point Police Department is grateful to the Flanagan family to support his career choice, by extension, helping to protect the town of Sewalls Point by supporting him in his decision to join us. If I could have Dave and whoever is going to pin his badge on, please come forward.
The 6-year-old.
We'll get the paramedics on.
All right. All right, if you would raise your right hand for me, please. I
I, David Flanagan,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will, during my continuance in office,
that I will, during my continuance in office,
to the best of my skill and ability,
to the best of my skill and ability,
faithfully discharge all
faith-
duties
faithfully discharge all duties
which may be required of me,
which may be required of me,
and that I will,
and that I will,
in all cases,
in all cases,
conform to the ordinances
conform to the ordinances
of the town of Sewalls Point
of the town of Sewalls Point
and its police regulations.
and its police regulations.
I will,
I will,
without partiality,
without partiality,
faithfully enforce
faithfully enforce
the ordinances of the town of Sewalls Point
the ordinances of the town of Sewalls Point
and all laws,
and all laws,
and will uphold
and will uphold
both the Constitution of the State of Florida
both the Constitution of the State of Florida
and the Constitution of the United States of America.
and the Constitution of the United States of America.
I,
I, David Flanagan,
a citizen of the state of Florida
a citizen of the state of Florida
and of the United States of America,
and of the United States of America,
and being employed by
and being employed by
or an official of
or an official
the town of Sewalls Point,
of the town of Sewalls Point,
and a recipient of public funds,
and a recipient of public funds,
as such employee or officer,
as such employee or officer,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Florida.
and of the state of Florida.
Congratulations. You may now pin his badge on.
Oh, boy.
Just one.
This is where I do. Careful there. Oh, awesome.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Again, nice to meet you. Pleasure to meet
And please get you to stand here. We'll go ahead and our official photographer will get some photos for us.
Oh, boy.
you. Take my Jake.
Kitties, you want the kitties?
Sure, bring them in, absolutely.
Quickly.
Yeah. Let's get in on this.
Ready? No jumping, huh? Okay, thank you.
Vince, can we get you to come up as well? Like get your photo with me, bring your certificate with you, so you can get a photo with permission.
These kids will never be customers. They have good heads of hair.
Picture of him.
Eat right back that.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you.
You want the bus?
Thanks, bud. Great job, thank you.
Thank you.
You want to take a picture?
Nice work.
You want a picture, Nancy?
Hi, Susan. How are you?
Hey, Chief. Next time, though, they gotta have a speech prepared. I mean, they're getting off light.
Just
Okay, the next presentation is a strategic plan follow-up, and Dr. Kim Delaney is in the building.
Blown into the building. Breathe in.
I lost our PowerPoint, so give me a second.
Did you? Okay. I'll tap dance while that happens.
Okay.
So nice to see you again. Kim Delaney for the record from Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. And we've had the good fortune of spending a whole lot of time with your staff and your consulting engineer to reorganize just a bit the strategic priorities for you to consider for the next 5 to 10, maybe 15 years. Really, that's about the range of the strategic plan, and it's still coming up, so I'll wait for that to happen. A notable change was to bifurcate the South Sewalls Point Road project into the road and resiliency pieces versus the septic to sewer, because they move on slightly different paths, complementary but slightly different. And so we've spent some time in kind of getting that organized for you, and we're getting close because there are only so many emails that came in. So those are detailed for you, and you'll notice that in the projects underway and the projects that are in the near term. The other thing we spent a lot of time doing was really trying to understand the relationship between the grants and appropriations that are coming into the town, and the town's remarkably successful in bringing in lots of grants from different entities. So the relationship between those grants to each other, some of those grants can match each other, which is wonderful, and you can get essentially 100% funding with one grant matching another grant. But there are other locations where there's a need to really consider the matching responsibilities in those grants as they come in and the timing for those actions. So I think as a team, we really spent a great deal of time laying out all those pieces to make sure that you can get those projects to line up, those grant dollars to line up, so that you can stretch them out to the best of your ability. And look at that, in just a moment, there's a presentation. So I'll walk through with a couple of slides to make it a little easier. So go ahead. So again, for the public, it's an overview of the strategic plan and priorities that we've been assisting the town with. The town met initially back in January. We've spent several months working with both your staff, with Joe Capra from CapTech and with Chloe from Gallo Pavo to make sure that all of the numbers align. Go ahead, next slide. Of course, just a map of the town, and we have that as a reference point if we need it. So for the agenda for tonight's discussion is to walk through an overview of the strategic projects, to make sure those are consistent with your expectations. Again, just reminding, of course, particularly the public, but the board as well, it's a planning document. All planning documents are intended to be dynamic. We do our best with the data that we have in hand to give you the best snapshot. And as soon as we print something out, it starts to change. So we know that, and of course, I think the board knows that as well. These are always intended to be dynamic documents, and as new information comes in, your staff, of course, has the plan document so they can keep it updated for you as you go through your work as a board. After that discussion, the manager did want to be sure that we touch on some potential revenue opportunities, because there's a need to think about how the revenue of the town will align and really be able to stretch your dollars out and bring as many grant dollars in as possible to bring the cost down to town residents. So a revenue conversation, and then looking for board discussion and direction on the document so we can bring it to closure. Okay, next slide. So an overview of the strategic projects. Go ahead, next slide. So this slide summarizes all of the projects that we've identified to date. So we have completed projects, which just good to take a moment of pause and just appreciate that you have projects that have really been carried out beautifully for the town. So we have those projects that are identified, and then we have four groupings of projects, projects that are currently underway, and then groupings of projects that are considered near term, the next 2 to 10 years or so, midterm, maybe 11 to 15 years, and those numbers could change, but those are kind of ballparks. And then really long-term projects, beyond your budgeting horizon, but in your planning horizon. And those are projects that take us out to about 20 years. So this slide summarizes. I realize the font is very small. It gets bigger in a moment, but I wanted to have a chance to pull it all together before we get into the details. So go ahead, next slide. So the first slide just summarizes those projects that are completed. South Sewalls Point Road Phase 1, the seawall restoration, the first phase of several phases of seawall restoration that are necessary, the land acquisition that took place for South Sewalls Point Road Phase 3, and then the septic to sewer study that's already been completed. And that's given us a platform to advance conversations with the county as a partner. The more active projects begin with this slide, of course. So the projects that are underway. So for each of these groups of projects, the projects have a reference number which keys to the map that the board has possession of, and for the benefit of the public, that map is available to help locate the projects. We have a fairly small geography, so I think the projects are pretty identifiable, but there are maps if you want us to pull them up so we can pull those up to talk in more detail. So there's a reference letter that really keys to a location. There's a project name and a little bit of a description as to what that project is, the status of the project, the rough cost estimate, and those are in current dollars, and then notes that really focus on the array of grants. And there's different categories of grants. There's grants that we have in hand, there are grants that we've applied for, there are grants that we've received, but the contracts are still pending, so they really can't ink those dollars yet. There are potential grants that we think we want to apply for, and then there's that matching category. So we wanted to kind of group those things together. One thing to note, of course, in the cost estimates is that particularly with respect to septic to sewer, there are town costs and then there are resident obligations. And so this budget represents the costs to the town as a municipality. There are also matching dollars, though, that may come in sometimes in the form of resident contributions, the cost to hook up. They're not reflected in your budget because they don't have really a home in this budget. But they are part of the larger picture. So I just wanted to make that distinction for you as we talk about the projects. So with that, and I see nodding heads, so I'll just keep going. The first group of projects are the projects that are underway. There are four. South Sewalls Point Road Phase 3. And again, for South Sewalls Point Road, your summary now breaks out the road and resiliency piece, which has one set of grants and obligations that come along with it. And then the septic to sewer piece for those different roadway projects. So again, those are just broken out. So South Sewalls Point Road Phase 3, it's about a $14 million total cost. And again, the combination of grants that have been received, contracts that are pending, the potential grants, and then the matching funds. And so for each of these projects, we were sure in working with your staff to reflect that we're able to satisfy our matching requirements, but we're hopeful that some of those matching requirements will be met by other grants that we have kind of on the horizon, if you will. So South Sewalls Point Road Phase 3, about a $14 million total obligation. Carrying along with that is the septic to sewer component. Parts 1 and 2 alone are about $3 million, and we know, again, that's going to take matching funds that will be connection fees to make up the other $3 million. If we're able to secure that project in the manner that we're anticipating or we're hopeful for. There's a master stormwater resiliency study. That's about a $200,000 cost. And then septic to sewer, particularly at Town Hall, which is about $185,000. One thing just to mention, and I do this with every elected board that I work with, some of the obligations that we take on in a capital context set us up for other good things to happen. And things like master stormwater resiliency studies do that. Because you have a master stormwater plan in place, you're then positioned to bring stormwater dollars down that you can't seek if you don't have a master stormwater plan. And so that's both a capital investment and a programmatic improvement to get you positioned for other things. So that's the package of projects. Discussion on those grouping of projects. Anything to chat about? Everybody okay with that? Okay.
Did that last meeting.
You did, so I just am trying to keep up. So, alrighty, so next slide is then the near-term projects. The near-term, South Sewalls Point Road Phase 2, a $15 million total cost. The septic to sewer part of that, about $5.4 million. Again, the town's share of what would be a larger scale project, double the cost with the connection fees added in. The tree canopy restoration and enhancement, a near-term project, about $300,000. And then South Sewalls Point Road Phase 4, just the land acquisition, road raise, and resiliency component being about a $14.4 million project. Go ahead, next slide. And then the expanding the natural gas line, a near-term project, still working through the costs in the discussions with FP&L, so we don't have a number to peg there yet, but as those numbers are realized, be able to update your plan. Hardening Town Hall, which is a resiliency improvement, about a $5 million cost. A discussion still underway with the county, as well as the lot to the west, acquiring that property to be able to use it as part of your resiliency and other town efforts. We don't have a figure for that yet. Hopefully that will be a very nominal cost because we'll be able to reach agreement with the county. The second phase of seawall restoration near Island Road and Samara Street. Road raising, resiliency, design and construction for North Sewalls Point Road. That's a costly project. A lot of grant work underway. That will be more informed, I think, probably after the next legislative session, perhaps, and into next year. Establishing a stormwater utility, a near-term task that's still being costed, and then a couple of other new projects, the sustainability initiatives that are being considered, and also potentially some complete streets improvements. Go ahead and click that again, Bob.
Sure, sorry.
That's okay. If you just click it again, there we go. So the estimated total for those near-term projects, again, 2 to 10 years, it's about a $66 million total cost plus some projects that we don't have numbers for yet. But I wanted to give you kind of the scale of the types of projects that are identified in that time frame. So, I'll pause for a moment. Yes, Kai.
A very minor question / point. The South Sewalls Point Road Phase 3 with the tree canopy restoration enhancement, back to the old what we call it, but I'd like to think that when we're done with Phase 3, we're done with Phase 3. And is it just, if it's just the trees restoration and enhancement, maybe we could call it something different?
Other than tree canopy and restoration and enhancement?
Well, it looks like it says, it's called South Sewalls Point Road Phase 3. And then we also have South Sewalls Point Road Phase 3 that's underway.
Right, so we'll certainly change the title to reference the tree canopy.
Yeah, it sounds very minor, but I
Yep.
see us
Absolutely.
kind of questioning.
Understand, I wasn't tracking for a moment.
Okay,
Got
thank
it.
you.
So, yes, changing the title of that project to be more appropriate.
Yeah.
Sure. Other thoughts, comments, questions? Keep rolling? All righty, keep rolling. So the next group of projects are longer term. Those are the midterm projects. And we're already positioned for grants for these things. We're starting to identify those grants. So So we have some waterfront access improvements that have been talked about in these discussions. Of course, we're a waterfront community, but not everybody has waterfront access. So about 25% or so maybe of homes are waterfront, and the balance, the majority of residents, aren't on the water. And so those are waterfront access improvements that are intended to kind of convey that benefit to the other residents and raise values at the same time. So 2 phases of that improvement, each potentially around $200,000. The idea of a shared use path through the town is another idea that has been raised in these discussions. 2 phases potentially of that type of improvement happening, likely contingent upon securing grant dollars from maybe the Martin MPO or from FDOT. Martin MPO being Metropolitan Planning Organization, apologies in acronyms, and FDOT being the Florida Department of Transportation. So, and then some stormwater resiliency retrofits, and those you're going to start to see over time as we build stormwater projects and have stormwater improvements. There's a need to ultimately go back and improve those things. So some retrofits being budgeted in about $1 million over that long time frame. But putting a placeholder in the budget, and then undergrounding utilities. And this is kind of the longer term, but you know, they have to have a brass ring out there to keep you working. And so this is the first couple phases of undergrounding utilities. Again, only likely to happen if we have good participation with FP&L, but we don't want to leave them off the list. And so we have a couple placeholders in there for undergrounding utilities. Go ahead and click again, Bob. And so the total for those projects, about a $12 million range. Again, that's with our best available data now. Those numbers could well go up. We're trying to do our best to anticipate the scale of costs to give you an idea of how those compare, particularly to the nearer term projects. But that's probably a reasonable range to have in mind as we think about those improvements. Conversation, questions about that grouping? Keep going? All righty. So next are the long-term projects, and these are on the furthest horizon. And so pardon me, the bridge replacement on Island Road is one of the improvements that we've identified. Might become a resiliency project. So, you know, these are all grant eligible at some point, depending on how conditions change. But we have that improvement, emergency access on South River Road, perhaps a next phase of Racy's Trail or whatever a multi-use path could be called. Additional phases of undergrounding utilities, so ultimately the whole town would be undergrounded by that point in time, so phases 3 and 4 identified. Additional seawall restoration we anticipate as conditions change over time. That's just a normal function of doing business as a town. And then again, additional stormwater resiliency retrofits over time, because those facilities are going to need to be upgraded as they deal with impacts. Go ahead and click again. And so about a $14-ish million group of projects in that longest term horizon. Again, to give your town and your team direction to start identifying grant opportunities and thinking about how we align the decisions that we make as a municipality to make us able to bring as many other dollars as we can to leverage our own. And so that's the grouping of projects open for your discussion and your direction. Seems okay?
Yeah.
Fantastic. That is great news. So, okay, we'll go on to the next slide. So, along the lines of thinking about the costs that we take on is an opportunity to think about revenue opportunities. Go ahead, next slide. And so, in working with your team, we wanted to take an opportunity to get some feedback from you as a board about the kinds of things you'd like your staff to prioritize and pursue. And so, as we think about the groups of resources that you have to work with. One, and the one that's the most attractive, are grants and appropriations, right? So I went ahead and listed that first, because usually there's not a lot of debate about grants and appropriations, but the idea is just go get more of those things. And so on a per capita basis, I would suggest to you in working in the region, remarkably successful effort by the town, and one that we would expect to continue forward. So after that, is a category of things that people don't like to talk about as much, and those are municipal taxes and fees, but it's a source that we need to consider. So you have ad valorem taxes, which we don't want to raise if we can avoid. There are impact fees, which have been fairly recently updated, but an area where you'll want to at least keep up to date with the costs of construction and maintenance. So those are fees that you should expect yourselves to reconsider on a periodic basis so that they can be calibrated with what the cost of doing business is. building permit fees, again, fairly recently updated, but something to be mindful of. And then opportunities like franchise fees, for example, with Florida City Gas. So new revenue sources that can come in under that umbrella of municipal taxes and fees. And those are two categories of things that you've talked about a bit as a board. Not new information there, but I wanted to kind of lay out all the pieces on the table so we can talk about them. The next category is your stormwater utility, and that's a revenue opportunity. You have a cost to build things, and then you have a cost to maintain things over time. And so the stormwater utility gives you a mechanism where you can, on an appropriate user basis, collect stormwater fees and then use them to maintain infrastructure and build infrastructure as you need to. Again, a mechanism to make you competitive, to bring other grant dollars in. It costs money to make money, so it costs money to set up a stormwater utility, but ideally then you have a mechanism that you can use for other purposes. So that's kind of the third category of thing, and you're in motion in getting that established. We wanted to be sure that we raise that as part of this discussion. And the other idea that's come about, as we just looked at the map of Sewalls Point, is the idea of maybe considering some annexation. You have some adjacent properties, particularly to the north, that might be good candidates for annexation. It's usually a win for the municipality. There's always a question of how much do you expend in costs to provide services to those properties versus how much revenue you gain in ad valorem and other fees. Yeah, there may be an opportunity for the town to pursue that. We've been working with your staff to understand what the opportunities are, but I think this might be an appropriate time to have that conversation, or at least get it into discussion for you, so that your staff can get the direction to pursue that or leave that alone. And then there might be other sources of revenue that you have in your minds that we haven't heard about yet. So we just wanted to kind of lay the pieces out so you could have that discussion as a board. And we can take that direction from you to bring your plan to closure. So I just throw those things out there for your discussion, and I'm happy to facilitate the discussion. I don't know, Mr. Daniels, if you wanted to add anything to that?
Yeah, obviously, we want to try to look at every avenue, and we don't want to raise taxes, and I think it's important that we maintain the stormwater system that we're developing. And the annexation piece, I've seen it work in some jurisdictions, and others, a lot of individuals don't want to grow by way of an annexation. But it can bring in some additional revenue depending on the properties, and basically, I don't want to do anything without you all knowing about it. But if that's something you want me to at least research, where we can come back and look at it. To me, there's no harm in looking at it, but if it's, you all know that, I've been here a little over a year now, so a year and 4 months, I guess. So, you all know what this community is and the makeup of it, but I think helping that burden of resources and revenues, where you're not adding a lot to it, and look at what we could bring in as possible potential revenue.
Commissioner Fender.
Yeah, a couple of points. Great presentation, Dr. Delaney. Appreciate that always. So I like the annexation idea. We've talked about it in the past. Some of you may recall. I'm struggling to remember the name of the community immediately to the north of
The Landings.
Sewalls Landing.
I think it's called The Landings.
Landings.
The landing.
The Landings, yeah, at Sewalls Point. Not in, but at.
I have some
I used to
friends
live
who
there, so.
and so I sort of dropped that hint to them over the years, and then one time we got pretty close, and the conversation sort of just drifted off. But if new personalities might drive that forward, I think there might be some acceptance for that. Under other, I don't know, since we're listing things, I mean, I wonder if just to list things, usage fees or donations are thoughts, but obviously you'd have to have a pretty huge donor to help. And lastly, is Gallo and Pavo, is there an ampersand in Gallo Pavo? Gallo and, I always thought it was two words, but I could be wrong. Gallo and Pavo?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I think it's 2 words.
No ampersand.
Yeah.
Okay.
No ampersand?
I believe maybe not an
That
ampersand.
was artistic license. I
It's
had.
good, yeah.
Looked like it wanted an
Maybe it
ampersand.
should be. yeah.
She'll be fine with it, yes.
Seems like it wants an ampersand.
There's lots of ampersands in that top section.
Yes, there are. I was trying to economize the number of
Excellent work.
characters on the
Yep.
line.
Thanks again for your excellent work.
So, yeah, sure.
Commissioner Campo.
Yeah, there's a parcel of land to the north of India-Lucy that would unlock a lot of value and perhaps impact fees, building fees. And I just want to remain conscious, before having to annex, we've got a large parcel of property that could be developed and produce building permit fees as well as ad valorem. So moving forward, I know that we've had, some discussions with different owners, and I think we need to be careful of some of the language that we use regarding, development, whether it be stormwater retention or trees, because that could scare developers. And right now, with interest rates going higher, development is at, the speculative end of things. So I think a conversation with people that are already within our district, already within our municipal boundaries, might be an easier first step, might be a low-hanging fruit. And I think we need to be a little careful of, scaring that off, because they've gone, 3 or 4 owners have presented options, and from direct sources, I called it the dream team. They had Lucido and Patrick LeConte and, Terry McCarthy. And if you can't work through a development with that team in this county, but on several occasions they packed up their bags and left. So I think that would be a more feasible first step, rather than trying to pitch to landings at Sewalls Point or Dolphin Bar. But that's just, the direction I would follow.
Mr. Daniels.
I am in contact with one of the owners of that parcel that you mentioned. Usually about every other month we're touching base, and the market, the way that it is with interest rates, is what's really the stumbling block that they're dealing with. So, but that they're looking at different things that they can do, and there also was somebody that was interested again in buying it from them and doing a development in there. So I think it's just a matter of time before something breaks free there. So, and when we talk about annexation too, it's a process that you go through. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight. And I would, I just think it won't hurt us at least to do the initial contacts and see if anybody is interested in that. The gentleman that owns the Dolphin Bar property, the Dolphin Bar doesn't own it, but the property itself, as my understanding, resides here in Sewalls Point. So if, again, I don't want to reach out and contact somebody without you all knowing it, and without you all, giving me that go ahead to at least just look into it and report back and so forth. So.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I support looking into the annexation. I've always thought it geographically makes sense that that's kind of the end where the peninsula starts. There's a road there. The water kind of cuts it all off. So I think it makes sense. And I think the flavor of the neighborhood and the commercial area kind of fits our town. So I think I'm in favor of looking into it. I also have said for a while, I think the stormwater utility fee makes sense, given that stormwater is one of our major expenses and something I think the town will be dealing with forever. I don't see that ever not being an issue. So I think those two definitely make sense.
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yeah, how many homes do you know are in the landings at or near or whatever it is, Sewalls Point?
I don't know off the top of my head. So I think it's similar in size to like Castle Hill.
How many?
I think it's similar in size to Castle Hill.
That's a lot of homes. Yeah.
Well, I think if I could jump in, if we could walk with the Dolphin Bar, I mean, that's a single property, a single decision maker, that might be a, more natural place to begin, rather than talking to homeowners associations that are, I mean, they're going to look at like, what's in it for us, so that's a more complicated process, but the Dolphin Bar, might be a more focused, single, interest, and it's the same owner as Stringer's, so, I mean, we have some commonality, as you've stated before. Thanks.
Commissioner Fender?
I don't disagree, James, but I don't know why it has to be serialized. I don't know why you wouldn't have 3 conversations simultaneously just to see what gets traction. And the one you mentioned is a good one, and these 2 are also valid conversations to have, just to plant seeds.
Mr. Kurzman?
I think the big advantage they'd all have is that you'd have the Sewalls Point Police Department, where they don't have a local police department. They're depending on the sheriff's department. And
They save lives.
And they save an awful lot of lives they've done over the years, and they definitely are probably the best small police department you're going to find, and it's very personalized. And I think that's a big bonus for anybody that'd be a reason why you'd want to come and be part of Sewalls Point.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank
so it
you.
sounds like a comfortable consensus to explore annexation. Sounds like that. A comfortable consensus to continue to explore stormwater utility. And some other ideas, usage fees and donations, we'll just try to detail that out so you have it as part of the record. And otherwise, thanks for the opportunity to have the conversations with you. So we appreciate it. And it feels really good as a facilitator to come back and see you checking off things in your strategic plan. So thank you for that
We try.
personal accomplishment. We appreciate that at the Regional Planning Council. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to public comment. I've got 2 public comment forms from Frank Titicus. One was on the presentation we just had, and also he has a comment on the meeting minutes from, let's see, from the consent agenda.
Good evening. Always a pleasure to see you. My name is Frank Titicus. I live at 12 Crane's Nest. And I'm sorry that Dr. Delaney left. In looking at the strategic plan, item 2C, near-term projects were listed, and this is the storm or septic to sewer, at $5.4 million for 366 connections. And when you consider the projects underway of 169 connections and part 3.2 of 171 connections, this totals 706 connections, which are all of South Sewalls Point. This doesn't reconcile with the plan that Mr. Capper put forward several months ago, that basically if you were going to do the entire southern peninsula, the cheapest price that Joe had in his plan was $25.4 million. So even if you take Ms. Delaney's numbers and you double them and say, okay, they're going to be a contribution from the connection fees, that still leaves a shortfall of $8.6 million. So whose numbers are right? Ms. Delaney's numbers or Mr. Capper's numbers? And I think that that needs to be reconciled between the parties and before you move forward. Also, the other thing is, you all pride yourself on not raising taxes. If you set up a stormwater utility establishment, it's an MSTU, Municipal Service Taxing Unit. You're raising taxes. So you all need to think about that. Thank you. Oh, wait, the other thing, I'm sorry. The other thing I wanted to address you out. I was out of country on October 24th meeting. I sent everybody, or each one of the commissioners, and Mr. Daniels and Ms. Stone, some comments on the agenda. And there was no mention of that in the minutes. The minutes reflect that there were no public comments, and I would appreciate if they could be corrected. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to item 4, organizational matters, election of a mayor. I never know exactly how we start this particular discussion, but I guess the first question I'd like to ask is there, other than Mr. Campo, is there anybody who would not serve as mayor?
Would not.
Would not, or is not interested, or would not under any circumstances, or would shoot themselves in the head or something like that if they were made mayor?
Well, now you're getting dramatic. I don't know if, I don't know about that, but I had gone back and forth on this. I enjoyed being mayor, and I think it's an honor and privilege, and but I also have found this year to be more on my schedule than I had thought I would necessarily be at this point. So I would prefer not to be the mayor unless there's nobody, because I don't want to leave Sewalls Point in the lurch, so.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Fender?
Well, I've been doing this a while now, it seems, and I've given this a lot of thought because I knew this day was coming. And, I haven't changed my position on how we elect a mayor in the whole time I've been here. I get a lot of comments along the way of, whose turn is it? I'm like, we don't do turns. We do who is the most adept and the proper figurehead to lead the town. That's my position when I drive this bus or think about this decision. So as such, I would like to make a motion, and it's unprecedented because I've never heard of a third-term mayor in Sewalls Point, but I would like to make a motion to nominate John for yet another term. I think he's provided a stable, even-keeled leadership role as a, as a good figurehead for Sewalls Point, and I think he drives the meetings succinctly. We don't get too far off track. In the last 2 years that I've been watching this meeting with him in the head, I don't recall too many, deviations from professional conduct. And we've had some unprofessional conduct in the past. So my motion would be to nominate John for a third term as mayor, and it's probably unprecedented. I don't know if it's even allowed, but I'd be interested in being vice mayor if someone agreed to that motion. Either way, it's been my favorite role in the past, and I'd be happy to do it again. So my motion is John and myself.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
I'll second Frank's motion for Mayor Tom Peck as Mayor Tom Peck and Frank Fender as Vice Mayor Frank Fender. I'd be happy to switch seats with you again. Well, first time, we've never switched seats before. But it'd be a pleasure to have you both serve, and I'm sure you'll do a great job. The only thing I would ask is there's going to be a time where we're going to need representation. We got a lot of money we're looking for in grants, and we're going to depend on one, if not both of you, to go to Tallahassee, because when I'm looking at those numbers, you're looking at tens of millions of dollars. And that means when they're in session that, and I know you would both be great representatives to come on our behalf to bring home the money that we need desperately to get these projects going so we don't, play around with this anymore. That's the most important thing. And like I say, my last choice, I didn't want to be mayor. That's never been my thing because I'm more concerned about my business and stuff for this year. And, maybe someday in the future. But I'm sure the two of you will do a great job, and you both have a lot of experience in this type of thing. And Frank, I thought you were a good mayor, and I'm sure John speaks for himself. We've had 2 wonderful years, and I look forward to a 3rd great year. You're a great leader, and look forward to having you keep this up again.
Well, thank you. Motion and a second. Any additional comments?
Call the question.
Well, I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, that all sounds good to me, and I wanted to hear how the mayor felt about it. And I know there is a lot of responsibility that goes along with being the mayor, a lot of behind-the-scenes work. So I'm just putting this out there, for any time, if you accept this and it happens that if you wanted someone to go represent or go speak something or go do something, another one of us, if that's okay, I would be more than happy to alleviate some of the load if that is what you're looking for at certain times, so.
I appreciate that, and I think you already have done that, with the Florida League of Cities, and it's important to have a good representative, and we had one. And I'm sure that, if necessary, we can go to the bullpen and call Mr. Campo out to help us at some point in the future if we needed to. And I'm sure he'd be glad to do that. But yes, I'm more than willing to go to Tallahassee or whatever it takes to help us with grant requests and whatever, so.
Thank you all for serving.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Tompak?
Yes.
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
So it's only going to be,
Yay!
well, I appreciate it very much, and there's only going to be one unhappy person, and I'll see her when I get home. Okay, so that brings us down to, just one other word. I think that the hardest part of this job is kind of, steering and pushing down the accelerator at the same time. It's some of these meetings can get really long and trying to keep us focused. So if I seem short, just let me know and I'll lighten up a little bit. Okay, so that brings us to item C, which is committee appointments of town commissioners. Are there any changes that we want to make there? And I think we need to come up with a replacement for Commissioner Campo on 4 and 5.
True.
Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Mayfield?
I would be interested in either one of those. Commissioner Campo, obviously you have the experience with those. I know I'm already on the Treasure Coast Regional League of Cities, and if somebody else wants to, I really enjoy being on that. I think they do good work. So I'm not saying I want to give that up, but I also would like maybe to.
Aren't you an officer or some?
I am actually not going to be an officer again.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I just found that out, so.
Back down.
I was kind of like, if somebody else wants to do it, and there's somebody else who's doing it. So I think, and like I said, it's a great organization. I've been very happy to serve on that board. So I'm just putting that out there. If somebody else wanted to, I'd be happy to do it again, but I also would like to hear what the other commissioners want, and I have been interested in either of those two. Actually, Commissioner Campo, could you explain a little bit about the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council? I mean, I know that's who was just here, but.
Right. Sure. So the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council was derived many years ago, I think like under Governor Graham, and they had a more direct impact on developments of regional impact. And then I believe Governor Bush kind of took out some of that authority and made it more of a ad hoc planning organization. So now, rather than municipalities and counties having to have strategic planners and finance directors and all the intricacies that large organizations have, they are now a bullpen of specialties. So if you want to do a comprehensive plan, you might go to them. If you want a strategic plan, my experience, it's more southern facing. There's a lot of Palm Beach County folks, whereas Florida League of Cities, I've found to be a little bit more PSL and north.
Yeah.
They meet monthly at Indian River State College on I don't know what day of the week, but it's like a Tuesday on at 10, goes a couple of hours. It's a lot of big picture, but the majority of it is developments of regional impact. So like Port St. Lucie. Port St. Lucie's growing. Have you noticed? So when Port St. Lucie grows, when what do they say? When Port St. Lucie coughs, Martin County gets cold, So the majority of their work is developments that affect more than just the local jurisdiction. And if there's some input, like let's say Becker, how is Becker Road in Palm City affected when Port St. Lucie comes up with a development? And so to me, it's a little esoteric. They get into, a little one world government and, little, So that's that. That's the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. They've had very stable leadership. You're going to get a lot more connections with county commissioners. The MPO is, while I'm at the roll, you want to talk about MPO?
Please.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So the MPO is all Martin County. It's 3 to 4 Martin County commissioners. It's 2 City of Stewart commissioners. It's Indiantown, and I think that's all. They meet at the county chambers. They don't meet quite every month. They meet probably 10 times a year. It's super long-term, and what I would say is if you're gonna play that role, there's a 3-day course that they offer in Tampa and Orlando, and everyone swears by it. I signed up, I was ready twice, and they canceled the class. And I mean, you think Kim has acronyms. They're like crazy acronyms. So it's a long term. You're talking about planning for the year 2045. But it's a chance to, in my view, that's a chance to build relationships with county commissioners who we might see when it comes time to county utilities, septic to sewer. And to me, it's all about relationships. The staff is, basically it's directing the DOT funds that come to Martin County. And DOT and the Turnpike is slightly different than DOT. There's a lot of consultants doing a lot of PowerPoint presentations, a lot of data. So I don't know if that's a different flavor.
I think
And
that,
you were acting as an alternate to one of the Martin County commissioners on that, or?
No, Sewalls Point has a standing seat on
Oh, you have
MPO.
a standing
Yeah.
seat? Okay.
Yeah, and if, at the courtesy of this commission, I'd like to attend December just because they're not having a November meeting since I decided to step back. So I could, sit in that meeting if that's causes any heartburn, we could transition sooner than that. You get a packet. It's very voluminous with a lot of diagrams and a lot of data. So I don't know if that's, now the future North Sewalls Point Road, that medium, we've got 25 we are, you interact with Joe Capra, so that's a plus right there, okay? I should have just said that from the very beginning, right? You get snap towels at Joe and play around a little bit, but so Joe would be a good coach to kind of steer you as far as, but I think the MPO is a place where our jurisdiction is going to have some more direct impact as far as what we do with North Sewalls Point Road. You remember when the Roosevelt Bridge started falling apart, and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse were coming in, and the COVID and everything? Well, they had to direct all that traffic through Sewalls Point, and North Sewalls Point Road is a state road, and it's on pretty high up. It kind of gets higher up on the priority list. So that is something that, we need to kind of keep an eye on. I had spoken with the chief about trying to get the speed limit reduced on,
I remember that.
on eastbound traffic, because the majority of accidents occur at intersections and at the bottom of bridges. And you're talking about fatalities. When I was, I think, serving as mayor, there was a motorcyclist who got killed right at the bottom of the bridge. And that was, so they talk about safety, fatalities. You have to have a little stomach for the stories about Indiantown and 710. It's dangerous. And that keeps moving up. And then, I think we're about 8 or 10 on some lists. So anyway, that's,
No, that was very helpful, and if I'm interested probably more in being on MPO than the Planning Council, but obviously there's other commissioners here, so
So you would like to work on the MPO?
I would.
Okay, any objection? Anybody else would rather do that? Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
sold.
Sold. And I would be interested in the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. I've had a chance to work with them in the past, several years ago. They, in addition to some of the activities you talked about, they were also instrumental in helping us get some loans and some grants to clean up the old King Plant site up in Fort Pierce. So I had a chance to work with some of the folks here, and I think the personnel has turned over a little bit, but I would certainly be interested in doing that.
Just clarification, our seat on the Regional Planning Council rotates with the city of Stewart. And currently, we're an alternate to Eula Clark from the city of Stewart. They're probably having their reorg meeting in November as well. She was always very gracious. James, if there's a topic that you'd like to chime in on, feel free to jump in. And I forget how the rotation, they're like the primary seat, and then we are, and so I don't think we're a direct appointment, but you'll have to check to see.
We are now.
We are now?
This year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. They wanted to wait to get rid of me. Now they're plugging, but it's a great source of miscellaneous information that's going to come up that a lot of people have done before, and they have a lot of staff too, a lot of professional planners. So anyway.
Commissioner Fender.
So I've sort of set up camp for many years and on the Tourist Development Council just because of my activity with the marathon and things. It ties in really well. I'm happy to stay there unless somebody boots me out.
Good.
And I'll stay on the Airport Noise Commission since I've been there since
By the
day
way, it was a little
one.
noisy this past week.
Yes.
Do your job, Dave.
Okay, I think we're all set. Now, do you want
I have one more comment, if that's all right, Mayor?
to, certainly?
Okay. I'm down for the Florida League of Cities, which I believe is mostly the annual conference. And I have yet to attend that. And as I've said, I think in prior years, weekends are not easy. It's not a strength of mine to go away for a weekend or go away overnight. So if somebody ever wants to do that, I don't think you even if you're not going to the league meetings, you're not going to, it would still be worth it and you're not going to miss a beat. So my fellow commissioners, that's kind of, in my opinion, that's an open spot. That's not really Mayfield because I haven't done it yet. So
Okay.
that could be anyone or whoever will
Well,
go.
we can list you there until such a time as you need some
Okay.
help, or we'll be glad to help out there.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other comments on the committee appointments? All right, let's move down to additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda. Yes, Commissioner Campo?
Just because we had a kind of a change curveball, let's say, thrown last meeting in regards to the Heritage lot, out of courtesy to the Sotheby's folks, I wonder if we can move that up so that they don't have to wait quite as long as, number of meetings. Could we move up the old business heritage conversation to, let's say, 8A, just to give those folks who had been here prepared for something and were kind of thrown a curveball with what happened, and with that, out of courtesy to them, everyone?
That's okay. It doesn't really, not really an ordinance, but we can certainly stick it up there. That's fine.
Mayor?
Any other changes? If not, I'll take a motion to,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck.
yes. That brings us up to the consent agenda.
Can we slip in the one comment from Mr. Titicus on the prior minutes without any objection for the?
Yeah, why don't you just make the motion that way?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the addition of Mr. Titicus's response, comments on the September meeting?
It was October 24th.
October meeting, I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Campo,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurzman.
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to public hearing, ordinance second reading, but we'll start out with 11A first, which is the listing agreement for One Southie International Realty listing agreement. I feel like you've been here before.
It's like Groundhog Day.
Deja vu.
Welcome back.
Thanks, John.
Good evening.
So obviously, we're here from, what is the last week? Just to confirm, so the information that was provided from Ann, obviously that didn't go through. And so I guess now we're trying to ask to proceed with signing the listing agreement so we can get the lots marketed.
Well, I think the only question I had was, last time we talked about it, I guess there was a discussion about whether to, dual list it with one with the deed restriction and one without the deed restriction. Are we going to try to do that? I mean, I think that's a really difficult way to.
It's very difficult, and the only reason why is of course, somebody can always, make an offer for less than based on the deed restriction, right? Because that's going to be something that's going to be brought up. But number one, they're going to come in very low. So really the key question is, do we really want to waste your guys' time on submitting a low offer based on the deed restriction or based on keeping the tree? Because the offers are going to be, probably less than $300,000. So unless you guys are willing to accept an offer for less than $300,000 and keeping the tree, then it's really kind of a waste of time for the county.
And if I may jump in?
Sure.
My position is that there's all these other very beautiful oak trees that are younger, and we would market it with, making sure that those other trees are preserved, conserved, protected, and you can build around it. So I don't think you need a deed restriction for that, but I really would try and, and use my property as an example for that.
And we've put together some, pretty good mitigation here eventually, so I'm okay with that. I don't know if the rest of the commission is. Commissioner Campo.
Do you have something?
Well, I was just going to state that I like the idea that Commissioner Campo had come up with taking a portion of the purchase price, and we already priced out what a live oak tree would cost us to have installed, and we can look at enhancing, as we talked about earlier with the strategic plan, and enhancing the canopy, and we're going to have to do some replanting with the phase 3, and I'm sure we can find some spots for those oak trees, the new oak trees. And also I wanted to mention, I've received probably about 2 different phone calls from individuals that were interested in buying the lot at a lower price with a deed restriction on it, but in reality, there's already a public document that we have with the arborist report that says it's a dangerous tree. So really, they could just turn around and flip it and take that report. They don't have to pay for an arborist. They can get a public records request, get our report, and just go take the tree down, because under the state law, they aren't required to have a permit if they have an arborist saying it's a dangerous tree.
Commissioner Campo?
So were those inquiries in writing? Were they like
No,
legal
just
contract?
phone calls.
Just
Yeah.
kicking tires?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, this is a difficult decision. This is a tree city. We looked at our situation with Kim Delaney. I mean, where is this money going to come from? So this has not been an easy road for any of us. I think the mitigation of the tree funds could be a solution. I think we were looking at some rather large trees and some very
20-foot.
As Donald Trump would say, very beautiful trees, very beautiful trees. So my motion moving forward would be, I'm going to take a stab, okay, because we've been told different numbers, and that's why we want to hire a realtor, to come up with the value. But just to get things started, my motion would be to have the mayor sign a listing agreement with Sotheby's according to the conditions that they've given us at a price of $599,900, and that we agree as a commission that we will set aside 15% of the net proceeds, which is hopefully $90,000 or something like that, for planting those trees throughout the community. The size, the shape, the type of tree to be determined, And I think that would be a good step in the right direction to providing the funds to reduce flooding, to improve the water before it hits the river, and to have maybe 30 more large trees that in 5 or 10 years, we'll look back and say, we made the tough decisions, but, we've got something good to show for it. So that would be my motion.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any additional comment, questions? I just have one quick question, and I'm going to torture Joe a little bit. Can you recall your, oh, this is cruel, I mean, can you recall your estimate for the STA portion of the Riley property, about how much you estimated that cost of that little piece for the STA?
We had an
I think it
appraisal.
was 750,000, if I recall.
So we estimated if we were to pay just for the STA and the outfall, it was going to be about I thought it was 700,000, but it's maybe 7.
Maybe it was 700.
Okay.
Probably 7.
I'm just curious, because I'm trying to think of the, there may be a little bit of a shortfall here. On the other hand, we may be able to sell the house for more than was originally anticipated, and it's close enough, so I don't have a problem with that. Would you call unless there's any other comments, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Fender,
I'm going to vote no on this.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tom Peck,
Yes,
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo.
Aye. Congratulations.
thank you very much.
Thank you. I will email you a electrical.
Thanks for putting us on the list.
Okay, that brings us to ordinance number 453, Code Enforcement Board Procedures, alternate appointees. Would the town attorney please read the ordinance title into the record?
Ordinance number 453, an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, amending Chapter 18 Enforcement, Article 1 General, Division 2 Code Enforcement Entities, Section 18116, Creation, Appointment, and Organization of Code Enforcement Board, to amend the procedure for appointing board members and alternates, and for other purposes, providing for severability, the repeal of all conflicting ordinances, codification, and an effective date.
Thank you very much. This is a second reading. We have any public comments, first of all? Seeing none, are there any commission comments? Or a motion?
I have a
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Mayfield?
kind of a question first. I know we had talked, at the first reading about, we changed it to where it says each commissioner shall, originally it was each commissioner shall nominate one member. And then I think the first version that came back said it would be nominated by the commission and voted on like that. I believe I brought up that I kind of liked the each commissioner kind of nominating someone to make each commissioner get involved. That would help take care of getting the people you need. This version, I'm not saying it's bad, but it looks like it kind of covers all scenarios, because it says on page 9D, it says the members of the Code Enforcement Board and alternates shall be nominated by the members of the Town Commission and approved by a majority vote. And then it says each member of the Town Commission shall be entitled to nominate one member of the Code Enforcement Board. So it's kind of like I feel like it's saying both things. Does anybody else read it that way, or is it just me? I mean, I'm not, if we want to just get rid of the each member shall be entitled to nominate one member, we can get rid of that. It's not the biggest deal in the world. That's how we do the BZA. But I feel like right now it kind of says both options. That's my opinion, that it kind of says the members of the Code Enforcement Board shall be nominated by members of the Town Commission and approved by a majority vote. Then it says each member shall be entitled to nominate one member of the Code Enforcement Board. And shall be entitled is not a directive that you have to. It's just kind of a,
I guess you have the option.
yeah, it kind of covers everything. I'm just not sure it's super clearly written, but I'm not, and I think maybe I caused that problem, so that's why I'm bringing it
You have
back
a
up.
recommended reword?
Well, how do you, I guess I'm asking, I had said that I liked the, each commissioner picking a member of the Code Enforcement Board, but it doesn't matter. We can just, I guess, just get rid of the, each member of the town commission shall be entitled to nominate one member of the code enforcement board. Susan, does that, and just leave the way it is? Do you understand what I was?
No, I'm sorry.
That would be the one that we would keep,
So, yeah, I thought that what I understood was that the commission wanted to keep that one commissioner, one nomination
Right.
for the regular members of the
Right.
board. I couldn't think of any good way without adding multiple sentences to say that
Yeah.
the alternates, you can only nominate,
I
you
see
can
what
only
you're
have
saying.
2 alternates.
Yeah, yeah, so each member,
So,
okay. You could, I mean, you could say the members, each member shall be entitled to nominate one member, and then the alternates shall be nominated by members. I mean,
that's,
And I think that's what we were talking about last time.
yes.
That the commission would nominate the alternates in each
Each-
regular.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Which I agree with, but I'm not sure it reads totally clear to me that that's what we're doing.
Mr. Fender?
Would we add a short sentence right after the word code enforcement board? So each member of the town commission shall be entitled to nominate one member of the code enforcement board, and it seems like there might be a sentence missing there that says, and the board will approve 2 alternates. And it doesn't matter where they come from, right?
Right.
Right.
I don't know how you want to word that, but I would say the commission will approve 2 alternates.
Mr. Daniels?
I was just gonna say, the way you said it the first time, Commissioner, it sounded like the Code Enforcement Board was gonna nominate.
Commission,
but
it said
yeah,
board, I was
okay.
talking about us. Yeah.
Sounds good. I just wanted to make sure, because it's better that you all
Yeah, I like,
point
2
to.
alternates.
Do you guys agree that the way it's written is a bit confusing, or no?
Well, it doesn't say what to do
Okay.
about alternates, that's the problem. That's what that sentence is missing.
Well, the first one does say that the members and the alternates shall be nominated by members of the commission and approved by majority. And then it says each member shall be entitled to nominate one member of the code enforcement board.
But that's what I'm saying, a clarification of the commission as a whole will approve 2 alternates. Doesn't matter who they come from, right?
Does that make sense, Susan? Are
the
we?
commission as a whole approves all of the members, but the nominations.
Okay, I'll
Can
take off the
come.
word approve and say nominate then.
Let me look this over. The members of the code enforcement board and alternate.
go ahead.
So my motion, if it's a motion, is to add a sentence after code enforcement board that says the commission will nominate 2 alternates, period. And then it goes on to say each board member or alternate shall serve for 3. I don't know if that clarifies it for you, but to me it does. It doesn't specify where the alternates come from.
Right.
It doesn't say that each member has to nominate 1, but it just says the commission as a whole will nominate 2 alternates.
I think I like that.
So that was kind of a motion.
I think that sounds good. I'll second that, assuming that Susan thinks it makes some kind of sense.
I think that works. I mean, again,
Okay.
I was struggling to come up with language that would capture.
Did
what
you get my
Yeah.
sentence?
But I did, yeah.
Okay,
The commission as a whole will nominate 2 alternates.
works for me. That's my motion.
Okay.
And second.
I'll second it.
Okay, any additional questions, comments? If not, please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo. Aye. Vice Mayor Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes.
Is that first or second reading?
That's second reading. And the next one is ordinance number 454, which is also second reading, construction site retention. Would the town attorney please read the ordinance title into the record?
Sorry. I'll tell you.
Ordinance number 454, an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, amending Chapter 52 Stormwater Control Regulations, Article 2, Purpose and Intent, Section 5225, Construction Site Control, Disposal, and Temporary Storage of Construction-Related Material and Waste, to require on-site control of construction site runoff and for other purposes, providing for severability, the repeal of all conflicting ordinances, codification, and an effective date.
Thank you. Is there any comments from the public on 454? If not, any discussion or motion? Commissioner Fender?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I need to.
I was just going to ask, maybe the town manager, maybe anybody who is of interest to this, if this accomplishes the goal that we're trying to achieve with this particular ordinance, which I believe is the overflow of water from properties that are under construction,
Water,
right?
sediment, and debris.
Does this do that?
We hope.
Okay.
It gives more teeth, in my discussions with the building official, who is out ill today, otherwise he'd be here at the meeting.
Okay.
Commissioner Mayfield?
I was going to make a motion to approve ordinance number 454.
There's.
Okay, is there,
Okay, I'm sorry.
is there a second?
I will second, but I am interested in hearing Dave's comment.
Of course, we're going to give.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, additional discussion, Vice Mayor Kurzman?
All right, yes. I'm looking for something in here that refers more to flooding out a neighbor. And it just says flooding by clogging channels, catch basins. But in other words, if somebody has water running up to their front door, I think in other words, there's nothing in here that describes where the water's going. If the water's going directly across the street into, let's say, somebody's front door, right up to their house and their foundation's flooding, there's nothing in there that goes to that extreme. All it does, it covers it really against debris and dirt, but if you have excessive water coming on somebody's property that could create water even coming in their front door, this doesn't cover it, and it's legal.
Do you have a recommended sentence to add teeth?
Yes, what I would do is also say floodwaters that encroach upon neighboring properties that would be destructive toward the property of neighboring properties, including homes.
I mean, we're talking, excuse me, Dave, I think we're talking, some specifics in terms of water runoff and erosion during construction and demolition activities. And I think that covers it, but if you think there's another sentence
But
we need to put in
it
there, we
goes-
certainly can.
Yeah, it goes more to debris.
Can you look in the draft to see what words you would put to improve that? I don't know what page you were on.
Well, I'm sorry.
It's not what I see, it's what I don't see.
Well, what I see is a sentence that
B.
says, shall be controlled on-site. On-site is locally and not off-site, right? So the water is to be controlled on-site. Once it gets off and does what you described, obviously it's not controlled.
I guess would on-site cover that then, you figure?
Well, that was my whole argument when we made this, is that it should be stored and maintained on-site and shouldn't go off-site. But the decision was, shall be controlled on-site.
If that's
And what you described, to me, sounds like a clear scenario where it was not controlled on-site. So this ordinance,
Yeah,
in that
you-
case,
you-
would then do it, right?
Yeah, I guess that would
I
be
mean, I-
considered outside. I'll go with that.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm good.
just guessing, I mean, just hypothesizing.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yeah, I think Vice Mayor Commissioner Kurzman just worked it out. I was going to say that I'm not aware of, and maybe our lawyer could help clarify. Are there laws where you start talking about somebody else's private property? Like, I feel like that's inviting a clash of neighbors, and then who's going to interpret the law,
Well, first of all, yes, the requirement to control on site means
would take
that
care of it.
anywhere off-site that it goes, it's going to be in violation of the ordinance. So that would include private neighbor's property. To your point, the issue that the neighbor has would be a private nuisance issue, not necessarily for the town. The town's interest would be in addressing the violation, of the on-site violation, but not necessarily representing the interests of the neighboring property owner. That would be a private.
Okay.
I think 457, which is another ordinance, would pick up a lot of what you just mentioned, hopefully.
Okay.
Okay, any additional comments? If not, please call the roll.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes. Next item is ordinance number 455, sanitary sewers. The town attorney, please read the ordinance title into the record.
Ordinance number 455, an ordinance of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, pertaining to sanitary sewers, amending Chapter 78 Land Development, Article 1 in general, by adding a new Section 78-9 sanitary sewer connection, and providing for severability, codification, and an effective date.
Thank you. We do have a public comment on this. Frank Titicus?
Frank Titicus, 12 Cranes Nest. And I appreciate you putting what I had earlier said into the record, since those were also comments directed towards ordinance 455. So, a couple things on the preamble to 455. And first one is, whereas FDEP has requested the town to assist the state in implementing strategies to reduce or prevent pollution and discharges within the BMAP. How was the request made of the town? You know, when you look at House Bill 1379, which was discussed here in July, it states on page 67 of 93, lines 1663 to 1674, it exempts local governments that do not have a domestic wastewater treatment facility in its jurisdiction from developing a wastewater treatment plant. We don't have a wastewater treatment facility in our jurisdiction. In addition, FDEP's 2018 BMAP report stated that our contribution to the nutrient load is minimal, and we were not assigned a nutrient reduction target. The 2023 BMAP report continues in the same vein, and it mentions Town of Sewalls Point 5 times. Page 2 states that Town of Sewalls Point is a stakeholder in the St. Lucie Estuary BMAP and participated in the preparation of the report. Page 14 states that Town of Sewalls Point meets the classification requirements for low priority for total nitrogen load reduction. Page 15 states that the Town of Sewalls Point meets the classification requirements for low priority for total phosphorus load reduction. Page 16 states that the Town of Sewalls Point has completed 30 of 39 submitted projects intended to meet the total maximum daily nutrient load. And page 17 states that the Town of Sewalls Point has annually reduced an estimated 2,313 pounds of nitrogen and 49 pounds of phosphorus. Now, when you look at the 2,313 pounds, North Sewalls Point accounts for 2,087 pounds of that. So considering the hundreds of thousands of dollars that our town has spent, is a reduction of 226 pounds, a good return on our investment. Also, another preamble, whereas the Town of Sewalls Point and Martin County entered into an interlocal agreement providing for the construction of facilities and infrastructure necessary to expand the Martin County sewer service in the town. The town's using this agreement to act as a surrogate for the town having a sewage treatment facility, when in paragraph 9 of the interlocal agreement, it specifically states that the county will allow 169 connections from parcels identified in Exhibit 3, Phase 1, that's been made part of the agreement. And then Ordinance 455 lacks definition. I think when it says that connection should be required to publicly owned sewer systems where available should be defined. If the St. Lucie BMAP calls for special treatment units, what's the distance a property owner will have to run a line to connect? And then also, when it talks about determine that properties with existing on-site sewage and disposal systems connect to the public system in 90 days if the system needs repair or modification. Repair should be defined. Is it a repair which a permit is required, or is it routine maintenance, which could be considered a repair? If an air pump on an aerobic system requires a replacement, is that a repair that will cost the system to be scrapped and replaced? And then also, state law, section 78.9, basically says that an owner of an on-site treatment and disposal system needs repair or modification to function in a sanitary manner or to comply with the statute's requirements. Sanitary manner also should be defined. Again, will replacement of a faulty pump entail a minimal expense trigger this section? Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, Frank.
Okay, is there any other discussion from the commission? This is a second reading, so we've already approved it, the first reading. Can I get a motion to approve ordinance 455?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any additional comments? Questions? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tom Peck?
Yes.
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us down to first reading on ordinance number 457, prohibited nuisances on developed or vacant lots. Town Attorney, please read the ordinance title into the record.
Ordinance number 457, an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, amending Chapter 22, Environment, Article 2, Nuisances, Section 2232, Prohibited Nuisances on Developed or Vacant Lots, to add discharge of drainage as an enumerated nuisance and for other purposes, providing for severability, the repeal of all conflicting ordinances, codification, and an effective date.
Thank you very much. Do we have any comments from the public? If not, let's have some comments from the commission. It's the first reading, so it's our first crack at this ordinance. Well, I'll be glad to start. I'm sorry, Commissioner Mayfield.
I was reading through it, and it looks like it must be the county law with only our addition of number 11. Is that correct, Susan?
This is the existing ordinance in which the Sewalls Point ordinance that enumerates various things
Oh, it's Sewalls Point.
that constitute public nuisances, defines public nuisance, and then says the public nuisance includes but is not limited to the following things. And then it adds
Number 11.
number 11, which is the language from the county ordinance.
Okay, this makes me feel better because I had a note, don't we kind of have this somewhere already? Okay, we do because this is our ordinance.
That was just the best place I could find.
No, I was reading it, I was like, I feel like we have this. Okay, so then added,
Right.
so does the county kind of have something similar with the addition of 11? Is the same, so that 11 was taken from the same kind of?
Well, in the county ordinance, it's a standalone provision, but it's
Okay.
in the context of what is a public nuisance.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, the underlying language is what's added, and the language that's not underlined is what's already in.
Okay,
in the
and
ordinance.
my last question is, it says creates a public nuisance as defined in section 2231. I did not look that up, and I should have. Do you have the definition handy of public nuisance?
find
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you should have.
I meant to, I didn't know. You can go to Muni Code.
While we're waiting, I could make a
Yeah,
comment.
go ahead, Commissioner Fender.
Unless I'm misunderstanding this might add teeth to what Dave was asking for in the previous ordinance, right? This is your public nuisance issue.
Yeah, it's missing something, though.
Oh, okay.
It is, but let me, I'm looking over here at number 11. It says storm drainage from roofs, paved areas, yards, and courts and other open areas of premises shall not be discharged in the manner that creates public nuisance as defined in 2231 of this chapter.
Did you look that one up?
Was it?
Just checking.
Actually, I kind of brought this in when I wanted this ordinance in there. So this would protect, so in other words, if there's a home that's on a hill with a perfectly paved driveway aimed at their neighbor's house, and it floods out the neighbor and creates erosion on their property, they are responsible then, because they're not holding their water. Am I correct? At this point?
Well, I have a basic I have a basic problem with what you just said. Now, let me explain to you my thoughts on this. I understand the philosophy behind this ordinance because you talked about some of the, some of the issues you were concerned about. And at first, when I read it, I didn't have a problem with the wording, but I do. And the reason I do have a problem with the wording is that it may conflict with approved plans and permits. In other words, a person has they've permitted their property properly, and then we're going to penalize them for runoff from an approved plan. The other thing that I'm concerned about, and this is because I was an engineer in a former life, the wording is too general. There's no criteria for enforcement here. I don't know how you enforce anything in here. And if you've got an ordinance that's unenforceable, it's hard for me to, support it in its present form.
So perhaps it would be helpful to have the context of section 2231, which
It's
is
up
what
on the screen.
Is it up on the screen now? Okay. So, as a matter of ordinance form, I couldn't put another ordinance that we weren't addressing in the actual document. But this defines nuisance as a condition that either injures or endangers the comfort or health or safety of others, unlawfully interferes with, obstructs or tends to obstruct, or renders dangerous for passage any public or private street, highway, sidewalk, stream, ditch, or drainage, or essentially interferes with the comfortable enjoyment of life and property, or tends to depreciate the value of property of others. That's what a nuisance is.
Yes, what happened is, there is a home that is on River Road. They sit high up. I don't know if they added more concrete, whatever, but when it rains, it's coming down like Grand Rapids. There's no other way to put it, and all the neighboring properties, it's flooding out an entire neighborhood. And they have room to basically retain their own water, which is something that should have done maybe years ago, but they've continued to add more concrete with this, and eventually, that is going to wind up costing the town a lot of money. This is something that could help with our flooding situation out there, and they have the room to retain the water on the property. And at first, the person offered to do it, then he did a 180. And to me, it's taken away somebody else's form of life. They can't go out and enjoy themselves in the backyard. It's creating mosquitoes. You got flooding. It's caused erosion. And it's washing out shrubbery on properties. And to go in your yard and you have 2-3 feet of water, it's no way to live. Nobody would want that in this room. I don't know a single person that would sign up for that. And this is very fixable by one individual. And I think it's that person's responsibility to take charge of something that they've allowed over time to happen. And all you have to do is redirect the water and hold the water over there, and it just goes right into the ground. But when your entire property is almost all concrete, from the house, the roof, the yard, everything, there's minimal grass that's in the front, but it goes directly into the street. And I just feel for the people that live across the street and the people live behind it and all the yards that have to share that water, and it's affected 8 homes because of one person doesn't want to take responsibility. If there's like a speed bump almost in there, it's very fixable and it shouldn't be the responsibility. I know the neighbors have already put out about $40,000 to $50,000 so they don't have to flood out of their own pockets. And you talk about, you're worried about your taxes going up a few $100s. Try putting out, $10,000, $9,000, $8,000, writing out to landscapers. And this has got to come to an end. And, if somebody that's going to just literally make an adjustment that might cost them a couple of $1,000s versus all these people putting out tens of thousands, I don't agree with this at all. I think this is something that needs to be enforced and immediately.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Regarding enforcement, if you could, can you scroll down to 2233? Because that's the provision that shows how the town can enforce against nuisances that meet those criteria through the abatement process. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's long, but
subsection is it?
2233.
You're there.
Costs?
The next one.
D?
Well, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm on
the whole-
33.
It's a
Yeah,
whole
you're there.
process. It's a whole process.
Okay.
The town has the authority to declare the existence of a public nuisance under those sections above, and then to provide for the abatement of the nuisances. And there's a whole process that follows that of making the declaration, giving notice of it, giving the property owner time to comply, and imposing the costs of abatement, placing a lien on the property.
Commissioner May, I'm sorry.
So I won't go through the whole thing because it's quite long, but.
Well, I actually wanted to ask you, Susan, the use of the word public nuisance. Why, the beginning of this section at least is just prohibited nuisances. What is a public nuisance versus just a nuisance?
Or just the next door neighbor.
Yeah, public nuisance comes from the county code provision that we were wanting to adopt, but I
Right.
hesitated over that too, because a public nuisance, maybe, and part of it is what is the intent here? I think a public nuisance is a nuisance that affects the public as a whole, whereas a nuisance can be something that just affects the neighbor.
The neighbor, okay.
Commissioner Campo?
I'm very sympathetic to Commissioner Kurzman's concerns. The question I have, and I agree with the mayor about how vague it is this the right solution? If you could go back up to public nuisance. I've never told the story, but it's a great story and worth putting your phone down for.
No, listen. Duty calls.
You mean the projected?
When I,
ordinance?
the 2231,
31.
the definition of 2231.
Oh, this is, hang on.
So I lived in North Sewalls Point for 10 years. I moved to South Sewalls Point, and there was a neighbor that was to the rear of me, and she didn't like the fact that my children were playing in the pool. My 7-year-old and my 11-year-old on a Sunday afternoon, she called the police. The police came into my backyard without me knowing about it. My dog jumped on the policeman, my 1-year-old yellow lab, and the policeman started demanding me. He grabbed his gun and he said, "Control your animal, control your animal." And he hold on to his gun like my dog was going to maul him or something. It was right in front of my 7-year-old and my 11-year-old. So essentially interfering with the comfortable enjoyment of life and property. That's what 7 and 11-year-olds do when they're in the pool, So I'm very conscious of the vagueness of that term. And I mean, I'll never be able to take that memory out of my kids' minds. And why that happened was just because someone called, and I think, that was, then the 2 police were out front of my house with a decibel meter. So I think we want people to be able to enjoy their lives and not be, but I'm sympathetic to the concern. I don't know that this is, we're going to go around to people's roofs and paved areas and see if the water drains into your yard. Is that going to be a public nuisance? You're going to have all sorts of, neighbors get into stuff all the time. And now if you want to tattle on your neighbor and you want to look at their roof and the water's coming down and it's interfering with your comfortable enjoyment of your life and property, that is a little vague. That is a little vague for me. I don't think we ignore the problem. I think we need to come up with a better solution. And I think, your work with Jack and the county getting specific wording, but to me, this opens up people's, people's properties to, hey, I could hear people say you know, my house has been like that for years, and I didn't hear about it, and then someone's going to narc on them for, you know, so anyway, I think that we need to do something. I don't know that this is it. And I think that the former ordinance that we did regarding construction, you know, sites under construction, I think is really the culprit here. But this expands it to everyone's home, you know.
Commissioner Fender.
I was just going to say that I am sympathetic to your concerns about maybe creating a scenario where somebody tattles other neighbors, but I'm not sure this wording goes to that extent. I think this is really directed towards something that becomes a personal issue. And the case in point is the water that is flowing into their front yard. I'm not sure that's a tattling issue. That's a, hey, we've got an actual problem here that needs to be resolved. You know, I guess it's possible to be used, but over the course of the years that I've been here, I have seen several flooding scenarios that have come up. You know, water coming down the side of a landscaped space into another property owner's yard, and there needs to be some, I'll use the word teeth, to be able to direct the person who should be controlling their water from not, you know, impinging on your own property, right? So I'm not, you know, obviously super sensitive to the scenario you drew with your dog and your kid's impact. But, you know, a noise ordinance would be a different scenario than I think what we're talking about here, which is water control, right? Because, you know, noise dissipates quickly, water doesn't dissipate quite as quickly, and we would like them to not continue the flooding into a neighbor's property, if indeed it's flooding. I'm not sure somebody would use a scenario like that to quote-unquote tattle on a next-door neighbor, which is the scenario I think the point you're trying to make, right? I'm not misunderstanding you.
I think Susan needs to broaden it from public nuisance so that it's definitely not just the public nuisance of one person, but the public nuisance of, you know, several, because you're going to have one neighbor against the other. Again, it's, you know, it should be a broader impact than just the quiet interference. That to me is, this is stormwater from your roof. You know, how are you going to be able to control the wind's blowing this way, it's blowing that way, and, you know, I think we need to do something, and, you know, I may or may not be here to do it, but I just think it's nebulous and selective, and, you know, opens up selective enforcement. Now, the town manager, did you have your light on?
Yeah.
Do you have a solution?
Well, I just wanted to say we're really talking about three separate issues here. We have an ordinance that I think shortly after I came on board, where we required homes that are being newly constructed, that they had to have a plan for retaining a certain amount of water on their property. Now, we had a second ordinance that we just passed tonight, where it deals with construction sites and lots that have been, the homes or the structure's been demolished. That's now as part of what we're doing. This is now a third ordinance. So I think in reality, if the goal of the commission is to keep all water off of everybody's house from going into the street or into somebody else's property, you know, if we could do that, but, you know, that's far-reaching, because now you're going to go back to houses that have been there 20 years, and maybe that was a vacant lot that was next to them, and now there's a house on it, but the water's now coming from their house instead of the vacant lot, it's coming onto somebody else's house. So I think the intent in the discussion that I heard, you know, when we did the water retention and increasing the amount of water that they're supposed to retain, was not to affect existing homes, but to deal with the new homes. And so in that criteria, I can't remember by heart what it was, but I think it was like 3 inches of water over a period of time, and retaining that water. So I think the ordinance we passed tonight involving the construction and the vacant lots of, where we've had a demolition, I think that there is no guide on that to say that, well, you're doing 3 inches. No, it's all water, all sediment, and all debris. This one, I think, is almost unenforceable, and I understand the definition here, but again, we're going to place an officer that's out there, a police officer is probably going to be handling the call, or if it's during the daytime, Jack would be out and handling it for code enforcement. But, we really have to look at, how do we prove that somebody was endangered with their comfort, health, and safety? And then the other, on the interference, how does it interfere? Well, we know if it's a public street and the street's getting washed out, well, that's kind of set in stone. But, I think it is vague in that respect, and I think we need to have more of a defined nature under the public nuisance, instead of being just a nuisance of one neighbor.
Why don't you work with Susan and come back with something that's a little bit more?
Well, I would like help, I would like to help with our engineer instead of our building inspector. He has a better idea. The building inspector is really for buildings, and he does a good job at that, but when it comes to flow control, that's not his stronghold, and he admits it. So I think this really is more of an engineer issue at this point, and I would like to have an engineer come out and look at all the properties, and this is something I was going to bring up later on, is that when it comes to holding water on a piece of property that's under construction, a building inspector is looking at it, but he's not an engineer. And I don't want to put the pressure on our building inspector. I don't think it's fair to him, and I don't think it's fair to the town or the taxpayers, because ultimately this is what's going to happen. When I thought about this, what happened was the guy agreed he would do something to pitch the water off on the side so it doesn't go directly into the neighbors' homes. And not just one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 different homes this is affecting, maybe 6. And it is a lot, and that is a public nuisance. If 5 or 6 people isn't public, I don't know what is. They pay tax money just like he does. And, he's never even there, number one. He's a total, he hasn't been there probably but a few times a year. And what's happened, he agreed to do it, but then the guy that watches his house, why are you going to do that? It's going to erode your property, his property. But it's okay to erode all the neighbors. I see the erosion going on in 4 or 5 different yards because of this. And it does affect multiple people. And what's going to happen now, we have to do a whole nother project up there because of this one home at the moment. And, it's going to cost the taxpayers millions of dollars. Ultimately, taxpayers across the state of Florida, plus whatever Sewalls Point has to come up with, because this one guy doesn't want to be able to store water on his property. And that's where I have the issue. It's a very simple solution. You just pitch the driveway a little bit, and you put in a bunch of rock, because it's only dirt anyhow that he keeps there. It's not even grass on that side. And then on the front, it's all dirt anyhow that he has. So when it rains, all this dirt goes into the street. And we can't do anything about that. I mean, if that isn't a public nuisance, and you want to drive in dirt, if you just wash your car on a wet day, I mean, this is what goes on. And I feel that I love kids playing, and I think kids have a right to play, and I think people want to have a party and they want to blast their music during the day, have a great time. That to me, that's not a public nuisance. It really isn't. If it's 11 o'clock at night, we're going to have another discussion on a work day. But, I'm more concerned about water. Water is our biggest problem in this town. I mean, we're on a narrow peninsula, and, I really feel this is something that is going to have to wind up ultimately. I would like to have our town engineer come in and maybe write something that would help us better define this.
First reading. And I think we've got a lot of questions, comments. Go ahead, Commissioner Mayfield. You're hitting the button pretty hard over there.
I was just going to say that I agree. It's reiterate what my other commissioners have said. I sympathize with the problem. I think it's a real problem. It's not fair to those people. I think an ordinance to address this would be better suited for, as was discussed, another building type code as opposed to the nuisance. And one of the reasons I say that is I'm sitting here looking at it, and pretty much all the other nuisances, you can go out at any point in time and see the nuisance. But the water runoff, you're only going to see when it's raining. So you have to wait for the gods to time it so that you can go see that there is an infraction occurring. And that would create a lot of hardship, and then you're going to have to go listen to the two parties just complain about it and try to be a mediator.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
videos. It
Right.
looks like a river. You want to go down?
No,
to
and
the raft
videos, but then you're subjected, oh, it's his video, that's not my, so I just create, so I think there could be, to your point about an engineer and maybe a building inspector, somehow, the fact that you can't go see this unless it's raining in,
I could call the police and they could put it on their phone. Yeah,
Well, I think we've talked about this a lot here, and I think where we're headed is probably for Commissioner Kurzman to maybe get with Joe Capra or the building and come up with some better wording here. I don't think anybody's happy with the wording here.
Yeah, this is not a building inspector thing, I'll reiterate again.
Well,
The
but
building
we need
inspector
we need
is,
to make our ordinances so that the building inspector can enforce them. Not the engineer, the building inspector has to enforce the ordinances. So we need to make it clear to him.
makes sense.
All right, so I don't think we need to take a vote on this unless,
Dave, you're willing to keep
What's
working
that?
on it, right?
Yeah.
You're willing to keep working on it, right?
yeah, Joe, will you help me with this? Yes.
Can I make a suggestion that we table the ordinance to either the December or January meeting? So it's,
January.
okay, the January meeting, if that's okay?
that'd be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings us to old business, and we've already disposed of the first old business item, so the next one is the town manager employment agreement,
Please don't dispose of me.
11B. Mr. Daniels, you want to bring us up to date on what we've changed or modified since the last time we talked about this?
Well, actually, this was the town attorney's, he went and took your comments from the meeting. The only change that I believe was made was the discussion over the vote of termination without cause, which we had discussion on, and I believe he changed that back to the 3 members of the commission versus the 4 that was in there. Again, I'm trying not to be directly involved in this, and this is something more that, that came up from the commission's standpoint, but,
I was going to ask a quick question first. Commissioner Mayfield, were you happy with the way that the wording was for the vacation? That was one of the
Yes.
major discussion items last time?
Yes, I think on a pro rata basis, and maybe the lawyer could confirm that means that from August to December, they will only get 200 hours for the portion that would be earned at that time, as opposed to, because
It
we.
wouldn't be 200 hours
Correct,
for that
'cause-
short period.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
It would be prorated.
And so the difference between section now going to be A, used to be B, was that it's receive and accrue, and then the new section says receive and be immediately credited, and that's the big difference, and that's what the town manager wanted, correct?
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Commissioner Fender?
So I'm cool with the 3 instead of 4. But I think I recall you being pretty passionate about a clause that would absolutely not work, and I'm trying to get you one.
The 30 days.
The 30 days notice
Has that been modified?
No,
No.
it's still there, and like I said, I've had the chance to see that in action, and it does not work. Flat out does not work.
So I'm not sure what the procedure is here if this, we're done with this, but I would make the motion to accept the contract with those 2 changes.
Mine wasn't a change, I'm good with how it was, so.
That's what I mean, well,
Yeah.
3 days versus a 4, I don't know if it's a change or not, but
And
I'm interested in the change for you on the 30 days.
Yeah, the 30 days, I think, is in 2 different spots. I
It is.
think it's in,
I just don't know how to modify it, that's all.
It's on page 127.
Or do we have to
Can-
bring it back? Do we have to
Can I
bring it back?
proffer a change? I understand the 30 days, but again, if I want to leave, okay, say I hit the lotto and I want to go, I have 30 days to stay here. So you're requiring me on that end, if I was to resign, to stay here 30 days, and all I'm asking was for the same. Now, I'm more than happy to make it 15 days, and, we split the baby, and, it's 2 weeks versus 4 weeks, then you give me the same permission here. Again, I don't think it's going to come to that, but all I'm asking is for some fairness in the wording. Sure. So.
Is this termination without cause, 30
Yes.
days notice that we're
30
talking
days,
about?
30 days notice, yes.
Right. So-
And the thought process, again, just so you know why it's in there, it's just not arbitrary, but, a lot of times, things can get heated subjects. I know from looking at some of the past meetings, and again, I don't know who's going to be sitting in these seats in 2 years. And obviously, I want to support everybody, but sometimes cooler heads prevail, and if there's a breather in there, whether it's 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, it gives me an opportunity to assess where I'm at in here and where the commissioner is. And if it's something that can't be resolved, then there's other terms that we can do instead of a termination of resignation or something. But, if it's, where you don't have it on an agenda and all of a sudden I'm sitting here and you guys don't like and I'm not saying you, but the commission doesn't like the tie I'm wearing, they can say, okay, I make a motion, you get 3 people to vote it in, and I'm walking out the door. And I really don't think that's fair for all the blood, sweat, and tears that I put in to this job. I just don't think that's fair, but it can happen. So all I'm asking for is an opportunity, at least, that I can address that with the individual commissioner. And then if it's something that, that I can't, and we're at a stalemate, then I know my options at that point, so.
Commissioner Campo?
Yeah, the Bob Kellogg termination was essentially derived from the way the town manager approached a commercial property owner who trimmed his tree the wrong way. And that property owner was giving us free access to underground utilities, and Bob Kellogg thought that they should go easy on the fine, and one commissioner thought that it constituted grounds for termination. And that was just before I came in. Paul Luger was against that, if I remember. So it happens. It's weird how it happens, but anyway, I've had employees over the course of years, and I find that they're all motivated differently. I've got one lady in the office, she's got a riverfront view, and if I ever take that away from her, she's gone. Someone else wants flexible hours. Someone wants big bonuses. If this town manager has told us, I don't see any big raises in here as far as salary. I mean, we're trying to be good stewards of, we could have a town manager who's, what are the raises? Basically what everyone else is getting?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember, I won't go there, but the last time that we had a situation, there was a significant raise. To be able to limit the raises is a good, use of the public money. I think what Bob is saying is, he doesn't want the riverfront view, he doesn't want the bonus, he doesn't want the other things. He wants job security. And if he sees it as 15 days or 30 days, what happens I find a lot of times is maybe it's 30 days, but they work from home and they're on call during that time. I don't know, but if that's something, I feel the passion. If that's something that is the difference between, and you're willing to give away with the other trade-offs, I just think we have to hear that, because this isn't just us making a decision. This is us and, the manager making it. So
And maybe I can just add, I'm sorry, but since this directly involves me, contracts, there's contracts for this person, there's contracts for that person. I think my track record, not only here, but if you go back to Madeira Beach where I worked, and I wasn't in contention for the job. They decided that, they wanted to see who was out there, and I said, well, that's great. I'll stay on board if you want me, and run the city. And I did that for almost 6 months, but I just, to me, the politics were such that I was looking for a change. But I fulfilled my commitment, and I was there, and I continued working. So, me as an individual, unless you all tell me that we don't want you here anymore, I'm going to be here at the door, and I'm going to get the job done. So, again, I understand it might not work somewhere, it might not work somewhere else, but that's my commitment to you all and the commitment to the town.
Commissioner Fender.
Yeah, no, I totally get it, and I'm sort of coming from this as a security professional and also a manager. When a employment term ends for whatever reason, usually the locks get sealed so malicious intent can't happen. I'm not saying you would do that. In fact, I would also say, I don't believe we are ever going to invoke this clause. But if it came to be, it would be difficult in practical terms as an employer to know that someone is being terminated, but you can't actually terminate them. And they can do all the damage they want to do for any amount of time. And this isn't a reflection of you. This is just how employment ends, and it's never fun, because I've had to fire a few guys myself. And so this conversation we're having is not a reflection of the work you do, or, maybe if there was a way we could find a way to give you the security, which I think 3 parties do, because, I've been here a while, and I've seen even some people pretty unhappy with town managers, but it's never been more than 2, and so it could happen.
Never been more than 2 what?
2 personalities that wanted to,
Oh.
But once it gets to 3, that's a pretty big problem.
Well,
Your case, I think, is that, hey, if there's a problem with one commissioner, I want some cooling off time so I can talk to them and straighten it out. I agree with that 100%, and I think it would happen in all cases. It'd be hard to sit on just one dais event and say, you know what, the sun set, so let's fire the manager. I would think that conversation or the thought of that would take some time to get 3 people on board. I don't think it happens as a surprise, And I'm totally sympathetic to your position, by the way. And I'm not, I'm happy to find a way around it. I'm just saying the reality is in employment contracts, it seems difficult to keep somebody on staff from a security perspective that when.
Yeah. So you keep them on payroll, but that doesn't mean that they're given the keys to the kingdom.
Okay, well, maybe that's the workaround. Maybe that's the threading.
It seems like that's the one issue that we're kind of down to, is the 30 days.
I think so.
We're close, so let's, I'm sorry to speak up. Sorry.
Commissioner Kurzman.
Yeah, before we hired Bob, when his application first came in, before we even considered him, I went out and I called his previous employers, and I spoke to commissioners in those towns. And what happened was, the reason that one of the towns they went from pro-development to anti-development, I think it was. So when they had the election, it did a swing. And when I asked the guy, this is one of the guys that voted to get rid of Bob, and I go, would you hire him again today? He goes, it's the worst mistake we made. He goes, at the time, we wound up hiring somebody who's really great interview and everything, but we didn't realize till after the fact we had a quality manager, and we took it because, sometimes when we're up here, the manager works at our discretion. We tell him what to do.
Yeah.
He doesn't tell us what to do. He can make suggestions, but what happens is the people in the town took it that Bob made these decisions. It wasn't Bob. Bob is strictly an employee.
Yeah.
He does with the wish of the commission, and that's why he got fired.
Well, this isn't about Bob.
No, but that's why I think what Bob is asking, and I understand because I got the whole history on Bob. He's looking for a little bit of security. So let's say an election happens, James is now going to be history. He's not going to be here, and we have an election coming up a year from now. So let's say 1 or 2 of you decide not to run, one loses the seat, and we have all of a sudden, I'm sitting up here, and I have only, let's say, me and John, and I got 3 new faces behind me who resent Bob, because Bob, let's say, he wanted to put sewers in, and that's how they felt, but they didn't realize that Bob, if we wanted to keep sewers and give bigger, septic tanks, and, Bob would say, I'm pro-septic. He'll do whatever we tell him to do. But you might have people come in that are angry, and they're going to take it on Bob. The first thing they're going to do is, I want to make a motion to fire the town manager. Do we have 3 votes? And it'll be, your 3 votes, and then suddenly me and John are going to be sitting there trying to protect the manager. It'd be me and
Which
you,
you
let's say,
should,
John.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just giving an
But
example.
we're talking about democracy here, right? So,
Yeah, but also protection for the person that has led a direction. But,
is he protected? If there are 3 people on this commission that did exactly what you said, if we give him 15 days or a month, I don't know.
Well,
My thought is his life is pretty
No,
miserable.
he already has the 20 weeks. The 20 weeks of severance is still in here.
Yeah.
So essentially what you're doing here, and like I said, let me explain to you the scenario, okay? You've got, the town
4 weeks.
the town commission is having some difficulties with the town manager. So they decide, hey, there's nothing here, there's no reason to fire him for cause, but we'd like to terminate him without cause. Let me get 3 votes for that. Well, at least 3 people are pretty dissatisfied with the town manager at that point, all right? And they're not likely going to want him to hang around for another month. Security concerns or whatever, it's a problem. So essentially what happens here, like I said, I have firsthand knowledge of this, essentially what happens, you're paying him another 4 weeks of severance. That's really what happens. So if you want to leave this in, you need to understand that you're probably going to wind up paying him another 4 weeks. You can't call it severance because there's a maximum of 20 weeks severance by the statutes, but essentially you're paying him another month's severance. So if you're comfortable with that, okay, but I can almost guarantee 100% that's what's going to happen.
I agree.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I do see the mayor's point and the vice mayor's point, but I also see that our town manager really wants this. So in the spirit of compromise, I think he's good, and I think we need him here. So I would make a motion to approve the updated agreement with 15 days instead of 30 days notice.
I'll second it.
Okay, and you're including everything else that we've talked about already? That's already incorporated into the...
Yes, with no other changes, I don't think, unless anybody wants to add any in the discussion part.
Commissioner Campo?
I appreciate the step to compromise. The issue, I have something that I would like to point out, and that's for discussion, page 8 of the agreement. Because we want job security, we want security of our own, okay?
Sure.
And I don't know, I mean, I'm in favor of the 30 days, because, and I agree with the mayor, it's an extra 4 weeks. That's what he wants. Then that's, if that's what he wants, that's what's going to make him sign, this is what we want. Okay, so the very top line, in the event the town manager makes formal application of full-time employment elsewhere, he or she shall provide written notice to the town commission simultaneous with such application. It's the flip side, it's our security. So that's currently in here now, and without that, taking that out, and we're having a conversation, we're going to try to come up with a compromise. Taking that out, you could have an email the day after a meeting, like, I'm taking another job, and we would not have any knowledge. So I think it would be good for us to have that, and if you want to not call it a failure to do so would be cause, I would be okay in taking that out. But I think it's just fair if we're going to give the notice. I think failure to do so shall be considered with cause under this agreement. I would rather.
That was my concern.
Yeah. So
But we
leaving
have
that.
to move it out of this section, because this is under the just cause.
Okay.
But I'm okay with putting something in there somewhere else in the agreement that It would probably fall under the resignation for 30 days' notice, but maybe put something in that section.
Are you following that, Susan?
Yes.
Okay, so we can keep that paragraph in, take out the last phrase, and then just move it to another part of the
I think
agreement?
on
So that
page
paragraph
6.
is already out, the one that you just read.
Well, right,
What I'm saying is putting it back
Somewhere
in.
else.
he wants it in there without my main concern with it was that it was automatically with cause. I mean, obviously, I'm going to do the right thing, and if I'm looking somewhere else, I'm going to tell the commission. But I understand, and you want that security. My heartburn over it was, well, just because I applied somewhere, and maybe, you know, there's reasons other than me wanting to take that job, but maybe I'm trying to help somebody. Believe it or not, I can tell you some examples, but, you know, the bottom line is, it shouldn't be just because I'm applying somewhere, it shouldn't be cause for termination.
Right,
Where I don't
right.
get anything.
Right.
So I agree with you.
Okay.
I mean, that way you have your security, and if we can fit it somewhere in B on page 6, Susan?
Failure to give the notice constitutes grounds for
Well-
termination with cause.
No.
The manager makes formal application.
No, I
Oh,
just
in
need
the
to
event
let
of
them know.
application.
So,
It just needs to be in there that if I apply somewhere, I need to let the commission know in writing.
right. So I think that we've come a long way, and we're really down to one element, and I understand there's a motion and a second, so my question to the town manager would be, you know, it was your suggestion, the 15 days. Would that be something that, if as long as it was on both sides? that
Yeah,
would be- Okay,
fine.
okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Fender?
We moved on to a new topic, but I was going to ask the town manager, which is the most important thing here, if the 15-day compromise meets your goal?
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm okay if we do it on both ends.
Okay.
Again, I'm usually I'm going to give you probably more notice than you would need,
Okay.
because obviously I care about, this town and this commission, and, I'd stay until you even got a replacement probably.
Okay.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking at that paragraph, which made me look at the one below. I was looking at the paragraph on 8 that Commissioner Campo was mentioning, and then I looked at the line below it that was taken out, any material breach of this agreement by manager. And so I was going to ask Susan, and I remember talking to town manager why he wanted to take that out, which I understood if there was correct me if I'm wrong, town manager, if there was a small mistake or, something that didn't go right, you didn't want to be, all of a sudden it's with cause, if it was an honest.
Right, anytime you're
Yeah.
on a contract and it's open to interpretation sometimes, and the commission has a different interpretation than what was meant, and what I took it as to be, then all of a sudden, you could terminate me with cause, and, I wouldn't have a severance, I wouldn't have anything. So that's why I'm not comfortable with that language.
I was going to ask the lawyer, is that a typical line for any material breach of the,
It's not unusual.
okay,
I don't know that it's standard.
okay.
And I think material has a meaning,
Material, you're right.
meaning here. It's not, you didn't cross the T over here. It's a significant breach of the agreement.
Yeah, material does indicate that, but then that's still open to interpretation.
Interpretation.
Of course.
So the motion allows that to be struck. Is that your intention?
Oh, yeah, I was just thinking about it. I mean, I'm a compromiser. I was kind of like, well, any material, it seems like if that does get material breached, that could be with cause. Maybe give the 30 days, put that paragraph in that Commissioner Campo said, take out the failure to do so shall be considered with cause, take out that. And then any material breach, leave it in, although then to the town manager's other,
I like it.
then to the town manager's other point,
You
if you.
sign it then.
Oh, you don't like that?
And again, I have no qualms about this commission, okay? So don't get me to say, I want to have something a little bit more narrowly focused and that can't be misinterpreted.
Well, it's already in your contract, right?
It's in my contract right
Already
now.
there.
So we can just walk away and take this out and,
No, I think the original motion seems to be agreeable to all
Okay.
parties.
Okay.
And,
okay. I was just trying to wheel and deal.
No,
that's
you
all.
were,
Monty Hall,
I am
huh?
proud to serve on, you're a wheeler dealer.
That's fine.
So I'm going to need to hear again what are the changes that we're making, 'cause
I think Commissioner Campo, did you make the motion? Because, or did I make the motion? I made the motion originally. Okay. I made the now I remember.
It's really only 3 changes. I
Yeah,
think.
I made the motion to approve the contract with the change to 15 days for notice from the commission to the town manager for termination without cause.
Okay, got that.
And then in the section for with cause, under termination of employment, we are going to take that paragraph that was number 9 and take out the last sentence and then
So
put
let's-
that paragraph somewhere else.
That's on, if I may, page 6, under resignation, I think it was.
Wait, I have it.
B, page 6. I don't know what the,
6B, mine looks,
Are we talking
oh,
about?
and I'm not talking about the 30 days. I thought,
no, you're talking about the language about if I apply somewhere,
yeah,
Page 8, Susan, page 8,
it's on page 8, page 130.
the very top.
33 of the,
In the
Yes.
event the manager,
Yes. Oh, that you're saying where to move
With
it
cause.
to?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I'm
I
my
think
bad.
that should be part of your.
Okay, you want that to be
What
part of the
I-
motion. I was just gonna,
Thought you were saying earlier was take that language and move it into the resignation.
okay.
clause.
And remove that one
Failure to
Phrase.
do so shall be
It's actually a
considered with
phrase,
cause.
not really even a sentence.
phrase.
Okay,
yes.
Take out.
In other words, at the end of, after application, put a period.
shall be
Yes.
considered with cause.
okay. I'm having a really hard time seeing here because I have 0 light and this is in tiny.
It
this
is- you
in-
have a
this
very
is in
small-
nice
yours is
type
much
because
smaller.
it has comments in in the margins. Okay, and then
And I
is
think that's it, right?
in resignation, is that going to go down to 15 days?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So it's the 15-day change is going to be in 2 places.
Got it.
And then putting a period after the word application in subsection 9.
But moving that,
And
Right.
then moving it.
To somehow fit it around resignation.
so what I thought I was hearing, what I thought you were talking about was in the resignation paragraph, it says, in the event manager intends to resign his position, and then I thought it would go in there, or makes formal application for employment.
No, I don't think
No.
it should be, I think it should be separate.
Just make it just move the paragraph and call it A or a bullet under resignation.
Because in this, resignation is a separate matter, that's a final matter. If he makes application, we're acknowledging, okay, you're making application, but that's not
A resignation?
a resignation.
Oh, simultaneously with such application.
So what's the title? If it's not under the title resignation, what is it under the title of?
No, it's just another item in the,
The item is called resignation.
So,
This would be a
yeah,
new
it
item
really
called
wouldn't,
something.
shouldn't go in that paragraph.
So it shouldn't go in section 4, termination of employment. It should go,
C, something in the paragraph, then followed by D, which will be with cause at that time. Is that what your suggestion?
no, I'm saying it's all under section 4, which is termination of employment. So it shouldn't even go in that
So
section.
you don't want it, okay.
Terms of employment,
so
section
that
1?
should go to, without cause. That should be termination of employment A. It should be probably, you have an A and a B.
But I thought we just said that if you're applying, you're not terminating your employment necessarily. You're just testing the waters out there.
It doesn't need to be in a paragraph, it could be in its own,
Yeah.
right?
I think that
So-
wherever Susan sees fit, because I
Yeah.
don't think we know any better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, see if it's and,
I agree.
okay.
Okay, good.
All right, so we have a motion and a second?
So you clear, Susan?
On 99%.
Clear as mud. That's
Well,
what
the
she
question
said.
is, do we want to see it again? It sounds like, Commissioner Fender, you sound like you want to see it again.
Probably want to see the changes.
Okay, we'd like to see it again, but
Okay.
Okay.
we don't need
I
to take a
think-
vote then.
We're materially there.
We're materially
I
there.
understand the concept now, and
Okay.
I haven't actually been working on this, so
Right,
I don't
that's fair. That's
have
We're
a
going to tell
sense
April,
of where-
we're going to tell April not to hog all the light next meeting. It's a little bit of a, it's the halo effect. It just
And
follows
she does
her.
have, she has small writing
But
compared
it's
to us.
because the copy that I have has the comments in the margins, so it came out really tiny.
Well, Bob, you didn't know this wasn't going to be easy, so.
Yeah.
But you know what? You know, credit to us because there's no emotion, there's no issue, there's no septic to sewer, there's no trees. I mean, this is the time to be able to extend this when there's not,
Agree.
you know, bluster. And
Agree.
I think, you know, hat goes off to the town manager to be, you know, in the midst of the sausage making, and it's a difficult position, so.
Agree.
Okay, that brings us to item 12, septic to sewer south.
So we're just going to,
Yeah, I made a motion to approve it, but maybe we should see it again.
Okay,
Right? I had made a motion, there was a second,
All
so
right,
maybe.
I'm
we
sorry.
should-
No, I
motion,
seconded.
so the motion might be to direct
Okay.
Susan to come back with the final version.
I'll make the motion I made before, but no, I'm just going to make a new one. I don't know how it exactly goes, Mayor, but to just make the changes and we'll look at it again.
okay.
Seconded.
All right, take a vote. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fender.
Aye.
Town Manager Daniels. I almost got
He
him.
doesn't get the vote.
I don't get a vote. I have a voice, so. And
Okay,
hopefully I use that judiciously.
Item 12 is new business, septic to sewer south of Pineapple Lane. Mr. Daniels.
Yes, this is the agreement for doing the design work for the next phase of the septic to sewer proposal. There, basically, this will give Joe the authority to go in and do the design work for the remainder 171 connections that are allowed with grinder systems, and I announced that correctly.
Okay, Mr. Campo?
I was going to give Joe a hard time about this and say, I see a lot of planning fees, but I don't see anything until I drove into work today.
Yes.
And I saw Mrs. Riley's lot with just pipe and heavy equipment, and it was a joy to see it. And I know I get impatient with you sometimes, but I'm glad that you're showing us the progress. So I'm in favor of continuing to move ahead. Thank you for that.
Is that a motion?
No, just a comment.
Mr. Mayfield?
I have to say too, I got very excited. I was talking to my mom and I drove by all the pipes. I'm like, oh my God, it's starting.
Did you ever think that you'd be excited over this? This
I was
is
like, finally.
such a geek.
Anyway, so it was very exciting.
Carnage and destruction is just upon us.
I make a motion to approve the contract and expenditure.
I'll second it.
If I could make a request that the approval of the contract be subject to legal review,
Oh,
because I think there may be some additional provisions we need to make sure are included in the contract,
Okay.
depending on the sources of funding, and
okay. I would,
maybe some Florida legal provisions, required
Do you want them,
provisions as
do
well.
you want a motion subject to, or do you want to just wait until next month?
I don't think it needs to wait.
Okay.
The business terms of the contract are set out in the agenda, and if you can just make that approval subject to legal review
Okay.
of the contract
Okay.
as to form.
okay, I'd make a motion to approve the contract and expenditure subject to legal review as to the form of the contract.
I'll second it again.
Any additional discussion, comments? Please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes.
Okay, that brings us down to staff comments, staff closing comments.
If I may, Mayor, just under discussion, there was an issue that came up that Commissioner Fender brought to my attention involving the location of the Brightline station. And everybody probably has seen the news, and the information came to me before, we already sent the agenda out, and then unfortunately, I was unavailable this last weekend to draft something to have at least at your desks. But what I wanted to run by you to make sure that none of you have any problems with it, I'd like to craft, because there's a time limitation here, so if it's okay with you, I'd like to craft a letter, and even if, you authorize either myself or the mayor once it's done, but, kind of craft a letter that says that, we're interested in projects that are of mutual concern between us and the county, Martin County Commissioners, and, so we, I guess we, I don't know if the word was endorsed, but I'm trying to think of what the official request was at the time. But just
a letter of support is what you're talking about.
Letter of support.
Okay.
So,
Brightline Station in Stewart?
in Martin County.
Oh, okay.
Because there's two locations. There's one, my understanding is the old fairground site, and the other one is the, I forget the name of the lumber yard that sits over by the East Coast Lumber. Thank you. And so I don't think we have a dog in that fight as to which one. I think we're just trying to be cooperative with our county commissioners.
I can add some color.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
So I just happened to be sitting on the Tourist Development Council meeting last week, and the topic came up. And if you've been following the news, the city of Fort Pierce is putting a pretty aggressive fight to have the stop in their city, and it looks like the Board of County Commissioners, along with the city of Stewart, are working in tandem to provide a equally competitive and compelling bid to the Brightline organization in order to convince them to bring it here. And they're negotiating in good faith on their committee. I'm not part of that, but I got to listen to what some of the creative ideas they're trying to come up with to put a positive step forward from the while they're bringing it forward to the Tourist Development Council, which makes sense because we're trying to bring tourists into Martin County, which is what that board does, and seeks to raise bed tax while we do it when people come here and stay in our hotels and things. But what they did is they took some ARPA funds, some available grant money that was not used at about $800,000. And they want to use those funds as the incentive to get Brightline to choose Martin County. And I think probably Fort Pierce has done something comparable.
About a year ago?
Maybe, yeah. And maybe you guys know more about this from the MPO or from some of your planning councils, and you can add additional color. But I'm telling you that they just came up this time and said, time is short. We have to have our proposals in on, I think, December 9th.
I think the 9th, but I think they have a meeting on November 29th.
Okay.
I believe was the date I heard.
And Doug Smith asked that, since I was on there, that he wanted to show unanimous support from municipalities on the Treasure Coast to get behind the Martin County request. Along, they're putting in the money. They're doing it in such a way as to do some joint advertising, so they'll maybe come to Stewart on the sides of a Brightline train. I don't know, but Narissa is going to come up with some creative marketing campaigns that Brightline can use in tandem with Martin County as part of their incentive to, in addition to some financial purchase of tickets that the county would use to entice people to come here as well. I don't know the nuance of it, but all I know is they requested that Sewalls Point offer a letter of endorsement so that when they present it, they realize there are other, some of the controversy may be settling down around the county. So that's my perspective of the short amount of presentation I got from the Tourist Development Council. But if you have deeper info, I'd be interested to hear that as well. But I'm wondering if we as a dais agree with this, and we are, because there is some controversy to it. I know some people who do not support a stop for Brightline here. And that's certainly been the loud cry a long time ago before Brightline came, but now Brightline's here. So the question is, is it going to stop or isn't it? I personally am in favor of it actually stopping, and I'd rather do it closer than farther away. I'm obviously open to listening to the other side of that argument, if there is one. But if there's not, then I'd also be interested in hearing that we can provide some letter of endorsement from the town of Sewalls Point to County Commission and the City of Stewart to back them in their initiative to get a stop in Martin County.
Okay, I don't think there's any, it doesn't sound like there's any dissension here, but we'd like to.
I'm listening, I don't know.
We'd like to support it, I think it'd be interesting to see. I mean, it's still, even after they decide, it's still going to be a long time before there's a station. I think it's, 2027 or 2028, something like that, before the station will actually be there. So it's still a ways off in the future, but yeah, I don't think we have any problems with writing a letter of support. Please go ahead and draft up one.
Okay.
Do you have any other?
If we are back on comments, I think I hear it. I think those are sleigh bells I hear.
Oh, I heard
And
that.
ho, 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 I heard in the distance. I think that's Santa Claus is coming here December the 10th.
Santa Claus!
Oh, Santa Claus. On a Sunday, he's going to pray and then, go on the normal Christmas parade that we have and our holiday open house that we have here in Town Hall. So if you will mark that down on your calendars, it's December 10th, and to be followed up the next day with the dedication or ribbon cutting for our septic to sewer program. So we're hoping to get that all moving. So if you put those two dates on your calendar, I would appreciate it. We also, on Saturday, we have the first public hearing for the vulnerability and stormwater project, the study that they're doing, and there's actually two public events, and one of them is this Saturday, starting at 9 o'clock, roughly an hour and a half here in Town Hall. So if any of you are available and would like to attend, I would appreciate that. And, I did ask our assistant town attorney if she would take a few minutes just to go over some of the voting situations that we might have starting with our January meeting, because we'll be running almost 3 months with just 4 members on the commission. So if you can indulge me and the assistant town manager, or town attorney, sorry, if you can go through that, Susan, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, and I've had a chance to look at the state law and confirm it that, so if you're a 5-member commission, your quorum is a majority is 3. If you're down to a 4-member commission, your quorum is still going to be 3. And then under the state law, in order to approve something, the approval requires a majority of the quorum present. So if you only have your 3-member, if somebody's absent, so that you only have 3 commissioners present, then 2 favorable votes would be an approval. If you have all 4 members present, then a tie vote is not an approval. You're going to need 3 out of 4 votes in order to approve an action.
We've been that before Kaya came along, we went 4 and
Okay, any other staff comments? Commission comments? Commissioner Campo.
Yes, when I dropped my first son off for college, I got advice from Scott Wade, and he said, don't give the emotional speech, when you're at campus. Have dinner out with them first and blubber all you want. So I just wanted to tell my commissioners, how much you mean to me and how much you've helped me just as a person. So.
same here, James.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? I just had one question, and I don't want to delay the end of this meeting. We had a contract for the communications plan a few months, I think it was a couple months ago, and could you give us an update on that at the next meeting? Don't do it now.
Okay.
Don't do it now.
I will.
At the next meeting, I'd appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay. Any other comments? If
I
not,
I have a quick, so we have one more meeting, correct?
We have one more meeting left this year,
Okay,
and then January starts up. I
December
think it's the 12th, yes.
December 12th.
December 12th.
too late for the endorsement letter?
Yes, so that's why I wanted to make sure I had the authority to do it.
So James, you only have one more meeting.
And we will have a little reception for James after the meeting, so.
And the qualifying period is?
Same week.
the
Yes.
same? Okay, okay.
Because that has to be in by the 19th, I think.
15th.
15th, sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I came across something when April asked me to turn in my empty binders to use that I just thought would be kind of interesting. It's Sewalls Point's taxable values over years, and I just thought that was a good reference piece because we're going up by 10% per year, but for some years it was flat. So.
What's our current number?
Taxable value, I think around 800
It's just
million.
just under $1 billion. I
Yeah.
think we're like 20 million under $1 billion.
Yeah. That's taxable values, not market values.
Yes.
I remember those times.
It's a crash.
okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you.